Good morning. So, since I was telling the Snoop Dogg story on Friday, I thought I would tell another story. I got a lot of South by Southwest stories. So I'll tell how I met Lady Gaga, which is a pretty good story. And before I tell that story, so my first time to really go out for South by Southwest was in 2009. Yes, March of 2009. And I didn't know anything about it. I had some friends that told me that they're going to be out. They're going to be at Fader for it. And I was like, cool, I'll just meet you guys out there. Well, I show up and then I find out that you have to have an RSVP, you have to get a wristband, and that people could have plus ones. So I'm kind of freaking out, trying to figure out how am I going to get in here. And so when I find out that you can have a plus one, and not everyone had their plus one, but the plus ones had to be there in order to get a wristband. So I realized, I stood in line with my friends until I got all the way to the front. And then from that point, I just kind of stood back asking if anyone had a plus one that wasn't there. And finally, this girl said she did. I gave her $20 and she let me be her plus one and I got a wristband. Now, this was the beginning of me realizing that this was kind of this game of not being able to get into places, but finding a way to get in anyway. And that's what South by Southwest was for me. Not to say that I didn't RSVP to some of the bigger places like Fader Fort, but oftentimes my friends would have some sort of RSVP somewhere else that I didn't have, and I'd have to get real clever on how I got in there. So fast forward, I think this might have been, I think this also was 2015. So my girlfriend at the time had a friend who owned this bartending company, and she was bartending for this, it was like a platinum badge only venue show for the night, whatever. And this friend, she didn't really like me. I mean, I guess we just didn't really like each other. But she said that if I could bring her a joint and bring her a Xanax, that she could get me in by letting me have a bartending shirt just to say that I worked with them. So I find somebody that gives me a Xanax, and I rolled up like 4 or 5 joints, and I show up and nobody's even in there yet other than people working the venue. Like there's a huge line of people. So I just walk up and say, hey, I'm with such and such bartending company. And they're just like, cool. And then let me in just like that. Cool. So I walk in there, she gives me a shirt, I give her joint and her Xanax, she's happy, and she's like, you don't have to keep wearing this shirt if you don't want to. So I was like, okay. So I put my shirt back over it, and now I'm back to being just like a civilian in this venue, right? So no one's there, so I'm kind of walking around, and at the time I smoked cigarettes, so I'd pop outside, smoke cigarettes, and I start meeting like the security guards. And these guys are all cool. I'm like, do y'all smoke weed? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, here's a joint. And then there was a security guy that was working the VIP that he would, no one's even there yet, in which my girlfriend was working the VIP section, which, important fact here, is that the VIP was the only place that you can get mixed drinks and liquor. Everywhere else in this venue was beer only. So the guy that was being the security guard for the VIP area, same thing. I went up, introduced myself. I kind of built myself up like, I'm Kale, I got a podcast, blah, 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 run a comedy show, whatever. And asked if he smoked. He said yes, gave him a joint. So I basically went around passing out joints to all these security guards, making myself known to them. And then the show begins. So I've got a few drinks in me, I'm feeling pretty good. And this is actually when I discovered Reggie Watts, which if y'all never heard of him, check him out. He likes to beatbox and he loops his sounds, and he's like this orchestra of through his sounds of mouth. And he sings good, and he does different characters and different voices and accents. Excuse me. He was a trip. I was very pleased that I saw him. In fact, I think he was playing at the time that I met Lady Gaga. So at this time, I go outside to smoke. a cigarette. And I meet this dude and we hit it off, cool guy. I think we even smoked a joint together. We come back in, and at this time, I didn't realize this, but my girlfriend who was working the VIP bar, I guess she had went out to smoke. And when she came back in, they wouldn't let her back up because Lady Gaga was up there. And I don't see her during my, like when I go outside and come back in, I don't see my girlfriend. So I'm not even aware of any of this. In fact, I'm not even aware that Lady Gaga's up there. But I come rolling in, give the security guy a half hug. Oh, I'm missing a big part. Let me back up. So before Lady Gaga gets there, there's a lot of people that keep coming up to the VIP bar that can't get in there that want liquor drinks. And they are telling me that they'll pay anything for them. So I'm like, cool, give me $20, I'll throw it in the tip jar. So people are giving me $20. I'm getting them a mixed drink, throw it in the tip jar. I throw a couple 20s to the security guy as like a kickback for him, you know, being cool with everything. So we have this going on. So I gave the security guy a joint. He's made a little bit of money by allowing us to, you know, give some drinks to some liquor drinks to the the people coming up and asking. So when I came back, I gave the half hug, and then the homeboy that I just met, he comes rolling in with me, and the security guard lets us up there. So when we get up there, we go closer to the front, we're watching Reggie Watts, and then all of a sudden turns around, there's Lady Gaga. I mean, it's not like I had much of a conversation with her. We said hi to each other, and then she bounced, and she had her little entourage with her. So it's just interesting, you know, over the years of going to South by, I had learned, you know, that having, you know, whether it's money, whether it's a joint, you know, because there's a lot of people that want to smoke, and not everyone has some. It went a long way for bartering to get into places. In fact, I guess I'll save this is a short story. One of my favorite bands is Local Natives. And at the time, I had reconnected with my high school sweetheart's younger brother. I think at the time he was like 21, 22. And he said that they're going out for South by, and he showed me like a list of all the bands that were playing that night that he wanted to see. And later in the night was Local Natives at a bar called Mohawk. And we tried going into a few shows and we're having trouble, long lines. So we all agreed that none of those people were important, that we would just set our sights on Local Natives. And we just went around having some drinks at other places. And they had 2 or 3 joints on them. Yeah, I think they had 3 because we smoked one and then came up with this game plan, because when we walked up to Mohawk, there was a line that went around both sides of the building. Well, I remember there was a VIP entrance in the backside from previous shows that I've gone to. And so I was like, hey, let's go scope this situation out. Well, there's this big old dude, bouncer guy, and he doesn't really look like a guy that smokes. And we're starting to feel a little like this isn't gonna work. And then we realized that all he's doing is checking IDs. The guy actually checking the list is inside. And this dude looks like ZZ Top with this big old beard and a clipboard. And I'm like, we're gonna get in. Give me one of those joints. So he hands it to me, and then we start getting in there, and we get close, and my buddy's getting nervous. He's like, dude, this isn't gonna work, I'm scared. And I'm like, dude, you stay next to me because I'm gonna get in. And if you're not next to me, like, I'm going in without you. So him and his buddy are like, all right. So we go up, and I get to the guy. And the guy's just so hardcore looking, like this biker dude. And he's just like, you know, name please, and looking at his clipboard. So I hold my hand out next to the clipboard, and I said, my name's Kale, and I opened it up. And he looks down, he looks at me, he looks down, he grabs it, takes his stamp, he goes, right hand please, stamps it. And I said, oh, these are my 2 friends, man. These are my 2 friends, they're with me. And he just looks at me, looks at them, says, right hand please, stamp, up VIP. And now we're like, we go down through VIP down these stairs, and we're like next to the stage, and it had this most intimate show watching the Local Natives ever. And we smoked that last joint on the stairwell. Amazing time. So yeah, South by Southwest, it's almost too big for me these days, because the last time I went, I feel like I got stuck in a sea of people on 6th Street. But, you know, over the years, it was just trying to get into places that I really had no other way to get into. And that became the most fun part of South by for me. So I hope you enjoyed those stories, stories of I guess you could say those are kind of like triumphant stories. So if you guys got any of those type of stories, put them in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next episode.